And good afternoon. I'm Tracy Sinclair. Of course, with me is Aaron Morrison, meteorologist Aaron Morrison. He's, of course, the guy that we turn to every morning. And so I'm very excited. We want to talk about the lunar eclipse. This is coming up tomorrow night, technically into Friday morning. But for those of us here in Alaska, it's very early Friday morning. So I have a couple fun facts before we get to the actual talking about the weather forecast. I'm fascinated by the lunar eclipse, by all eclipses. So this century there are going to be a total of 85 total lunar eclipses. Because of the way it works, the average person or the surface area on the Earth will see 40 to 45 of those total lunar eclipses. That's about one every 2.3 years. In contrast, any specific location to witness a total solar eclipse, 375 years.
Wow.
So your chances of seeing a lunar eclipse obviously much higher than your chances of seeing a solar eclipse, though Aaron and I have both seen a total solar eclipse and we're totally understand why people are fascinated by them. But the reason is because to see a total solar eclipse, you have to be positioned along the path of the moon's shadow, which might extend for many thousands of miles, but on the Earth is not going to be wider than 167 miles in diameter. About 1 billion people are going to be able to see this lunar eclipse tomorrow night, which I found fascinating. And when a lunar eclipse occurs, the temperature on the moon plummets, just like it does here in a solar eclipse.
That's new to me. I didn't know that.
Yes, and I found that absolutely fascinating. So they measured in February 1971, they monitored 2 Apollo landing sites. At the Apollo 12 site on the Ocean of Storms, the temperature dropped from 168.3, this is Fahrenheit, to minus 153.
Wow.
Just in the course of that brief moment of the lunar eclipse. So I found that absolutely fascinating. And I got those fun facts from space.com. So we appreciate that. And as I said, both Aaron and I have seen total solar eclipses.
Stunning.
It is stunning. I highly recommend it if you ever get a chance to do it. But you do feel that temperature drop then, where you're standing outside and all of a sudden the sun is gone.
It's like a 5 to 10 degree temperature drop that you'll see within a period of anywhere from 1 minute to about 3 minutes.
Yeah, it is amazing. The stars come out. It's just fascinating. There is, whenever you have a total lunar eclipse, you also have a corresponding solar eclipse. The one that is going to occur that's associated with this one is not going to be visible in Alaska. It's actually going to be visible in just a very small place, northern Greenland and parts of, I believe, northeast Canada. So
we'll get our chance in 2030.
2030.
West Coast will see it.
West Coast gets the chance to see a total solar eclipse. So let's talk a little bit about Alaska. All of Alaska is within the space where you should be able to see this lunar eclipse. For the majority of the state, you'll see it start about 9:08 are the numbers that I've been seeing. So you'll have the chance to go ahead and see just the moon's shadow or the Earth's shadow starting to cross the moon. Technically it starts at 7:30, but really you'll see the effects at about 9:08, 9:10 tomorrow night. Full encompassing of the shadow will happen about 10:30, and then it's done by about 12:30. Right?
Yeah, so it's about a 65-minute event that we will see. And mentioning the temperatures that you were talking about on the moon, one other interesting fact that I've always found quite unique about the moon, while it is cold out there, and as you've already mentioned, we did see temperatures out on the moon with one lunar eclipse right around 168.3 to minus 153 degrees. So that goes to show you the temperature swings you can see on the moon. But an interesting fact, those little craters you see on the moon, scientists have actually found out that those maintain an average temperature right around 68 degrees all day long, year round. So they say if we're going to live on the moon, that would actually be one of the more ideal places.
Oh, interesting. That is absolutely fascinating. So Alaska will be able to see it. Pretty much, I looked at the timeanddate.com from Anchorage, Juneau, all the way to Utqiagvik. We have a good chance to see this. Question is, weather.
Cloud coverage.
So I'm going to hand it over to Aaron, and you've got not only you've got a few facts as well.
Yeah, when it comes to the total lunar eclipse and where it's going to be best visible, now the entire eclipse, that means the penumbra all the way to the umbra, you will see that entire eclipse really from the western interior all the way towards Fairbanks, Anchorage, out towards southeast. Now areas west of the western interior, thinking the northwest Arctic Borough, Nome, out towards the Yukon Delta, Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Delta, as well as the Alaska Peninsula and parts of the Aleutians, you'll see all of the total and only a partial point of the partial visibility, which of course is nothing significant. That partial visibility lunar eclipse, when it comes to seeing that, that's really just kind of like seeing a fingernail moving across the moon. It's just that little dark black shadow that you typically see.
And so the people on the West Coast won't necessarily see
the entirety
the
of
whole
that
thing as that's coming through, but they'll see part of it.
Yeah, but they will see the entirety of the total eclipse. Now, areas extreme western parts of the Aleutians, as you head out towards Shemya, areas west of Adak, likely going to see not much in the way of the eclipse, more so as that moon is rising. That's when you'll begin to see parts of the total solar eclipse. So not everyone across the state will see the entire eclipse visible, but the vast majority of Alaska will see it. And as we've already talked about it, the Earth's penumbra, that's the outer shadow. That's just when you see the whiteness of that moon beginning to fade into dark. That's going to begin at 7:57 tomorrow evening. With the umbra of the Earth's shadow, that begins to move starting around 10:26 tomorrow evening, with maximum eclipse occurring at 10:58. That's when you're going to see that red hue on that moon, what we like to call a blood moon. And of course, it does end by about 11:31 p.m. So this is a long event that's going to take place about 65 minutes. To put things in perspective, lunar eclipses, they can last several hours, while a solar eclipse can last anywhere from a few seconds to about 75 minutes. So this is one of those events that you don't have to sit around, you don't have to wait and watch. You have some time to get outdoors and see it. That partial eclipse does end by 12:47, and if you are heading outside to look at that lunar eclipse, by then most people will have head indoors, because that's not really the best part of the lunar eclipse. It's the maximum eclipse when you see that blood red moon take place. So we'll be watching for that into the overnight hours, but as we've already mentioned a few facts, just a few other keynotes when it comes to those lunar eclipse stats. The best blood moon, this will be the best blood moon, I should say, until 2029. It will last for about 65 minutes. Now, there will be a smaller look to the moon, and when I say smaller look, this is all due in large part that this lunar eclipse is happening when the moon is at its furthest distance from the Earth. And of course, the blood moon, it turns red due to Rayleigh scattering, and that's largely due to those shorter wavelengths. Those blues, those are filtered out due to that Rayleigh scattering. It's those reds that make it all the way through the Earth's atmosphere, longer wavelengths of light that make it all the way to the through the Earth's atmosphere, and that's why you see that red hue, that red color on the moon.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fascinating, because of course that's also why our skies are blue, because
Rayleigh scattering.
Rayleigh scattering. Oh shoot, I had a question. I was going to ask you about this. This is what happens when I don't write down my questions, and I do apologize. But it is, I think they're fascinating. Some of us don't think they're quite as fascinating.
I mean, they're interesting, but they're not something, I mean, total solar eclipses, those are the ones you really want to look at.
I think if you get spoiled, that's what it was. You don't need special classes for this. You just need to be a little bit patient and to get out. Let's talk forecast. So much of the state has the chance to see at least the total lunar eclipse. That's always weather permitting.
Yeah,
How are we going to do?
Oh, expecting a good portion of the state, the interior, out towards the slope, western Alaska, mostly sunny to partly cloudy, or mostly clear, I should say, to partly cloudy skies expected through the night. One conundrum is here in South Central. We may still be holding on to some of that cloud coverage, so still going about partly cloudy skies into our Thursday night. But as we've seen here across South Central, some areas will be a bit more cloudier, and other areas are like, well, I don't have a cloud in the sky. So that we will see that potential for seeing the lunar eclipse. Not as great as what we'll see for areas to the north, but we'll still see a decent shot through the overnight hours.
And so a couple things. We've been, of course, watching the Iditarod. I don't believe the Iditarod's going to end that early. I think it's going to be a little bit later than that, but I do think it would be
cool.
Very cool to have the lunar eclipse going on while the lead mushers.
Possibly an aurora.
And possibly an aurora. That's what I wanted to point out as well. For the interior folks, you have a pretty good chance of seeing at least some aurora. So a blood moon in the aurora, I think would be an amazing photo. And we have some amazing photographers across Alaska. So if you by chance get that shot, please don't forget us. I'm going to show you where you can go. You can go to alaskasnewssource.com, and right there at the top you see that button that says submit photos and videos, and you can go right there and upload your photos and videos. And of course, we want to see all your aurora photos and your lunar eclipse photos. This is a great way to get them to us. It's very convenient. Haley's asking, what time will we see it? So it will begin earlier in the evening, about, we'll go ahead and put Aaron's notes back up. It begins early in the evening, like about 9-ish. You can start to see some of the impact, but really you're going to want to be out there around before a little bit, but around 10.
Yeah, between 10 to 11, that's the best time to really see the lunar eclipse through the overnight hours. That's when you're going to see those reds pop. And again, if you are wanting to see it, go between 10 to 11 p.m. If you want to see the partial eclipse, it's nothing spectacular. That's the one that just shows the whiteness of that moon beginning to fade into darkness. That's you really want the Earth's umbra that pulls out the blood moon.
Right, and that's the one where you actually see the as you say, the fingernail will start getting cut. I also remember from the last time we had a lunar eclipse that this was one of the ways that people in ancient times figured out that the Earth was round, was because of the shadow, the Earth's shadow on the moon.
Facts this morning.
It has just got all sorts of fun facts. And yes, Jonathan, it is going to go into Pi Day, which is of course Friday 3.14 for Pi, and March 14th. Here in the U.S., in other parts of the world, they do their months first. So.
And again, if you are a fan of wanting to see a total solar eclipse as well, you don't have to go far to chase, because we only have to wait about 5 more years. I believe it's April 2030 when we'll see our total solar eclipse out towards western Alaska, and that does include Nome.
I know. I'm very excited about this, because if you have not experienced this, it's so cool.
It's something that everyone will once you've experienced that, you talk about it. That's all you talk about.
Right.
When everyone's like, I need to go see a total solar eclipse, you like chase it.
Go. And I totally get why people actually will travel the world to go to them, because I was, probably 5 minutes into totality when I saw mine, and it was amazing. And it was
and it's a huge difference from 99.9% totality to 100%. It's completely different.
Yeah, so definitely. We highly recommend those. But since we don't have one of those anytime soon, we're going to watch this lunar eclipse tomorrow night, and it will be a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of the lunar eclipse, because as you said, you don't need any special equipment. You don't need any glasses. You can just go ahead and watch it. And if you've got a nice tripod and a good steady camera, give us a picture. We would love to see it. Thank you. And I think that's all we got.
But that's all I got from my end.
Okay, join us at 4, 5, 6, and 10 for the latest news, sports, and weather.